Welcome to the VA PALS OSEHRA Working Group meeting for Wednesday, December 20th, 2017. As usual, we are recording, and basically we're just going to go through the usual agenda. And with that, George, do you want to start?
I don't mind. What other things you want to cover today?
Oh, I think unless I don't think anybody else wanted to cover anything, so the whole session is yours.
Okay, great. Then I will try to present my screen. All right. So since last week, we have expanded the number of forms that we've registered with Vista that we can try out. And here's the SAMI form mapping file. And I'm just, here are all the entries in it. So we have a BX form, a CE form, a CTE val, FU form, PT form. We have all these forms. And in fact, we can certify form. Well, the first form we'll put and the.
Incidentally, FU stands for follow-up. Get your mind out of the gutter.
Right.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Whose mind's in the gutter? Not mine. All right. Okay, and so and those are the that's inconvenient here. We can try to see it more on. So you could see what they're mapped to, what the form names are that they're mapped to, and these are the originals that we got from ARTID. So BX form. Let's see. Let's look at BX form. Okay, so here's BX form coming up, and what the Vista processing on this so far, I've tried to do minimal Vista processing to put the form up to just see if we can get them to the form itself to work. So the kind of processing we do now is we go through and we clear out any values that are in the template, and then they would, you know, in once this form gets saved for this patient, then of course we would restore the values for that patient. But so far we haven't saved any patients into it. Let's see. I want developer tools, toggle tools. There we go. Console. So what happens here? I try to enter a value into this field, and I get an error, this JavaScript error. We can, just for curiosity's sake, we can try a different form. Let's use Kathy's favorite here, the follow-up form. FU form. Oh, gotta spell it right. And we can toggle the tools. And let's see, follow-up date. Let's put a date in here.
Hey George, while you're doing this, I'm noticing that some forms have the LCAP look and feel to it, and others have a newer format. Can you explain?
Oh, I mean, they're if that's the case, I mean, these are your forms.
Oh, that last one you were on, yeah, biopsy and the biopsy form there. That didn't have the green background and everything. Is that how you got it from LCAP?
Yeah, this is
that looks eerily familiar to the background form, which I think you guys did mostly from scratch.
well, we can see the background form that we did with no problem. That's called BSP form. Now this is the one we did.
Oh, I see.
And the original LCAP form is registered as SP form 2, and this is the way how it looks. So this is the way they look. If you take the original, and actually we actually have a way to display it without any vista processing at all. Here.
This is Rick.
So,
I just want to give a little
Rick?
bit of, I just want to give a little background. Over the last couple of years, I've been working with LCAP to upgrade their forms from HTML1 to more modern HTML. So you may be seeing some forms that are more up to date and others that haven't been updated yet.
Uh-huh.
So that may be part of the reason why you're seeing different, let's say, presentations.
Yeah. The value of doing what we're doing here is we can be using if we get updates from Artent. He sends the forms over like he has. We can be using the actual forms that he's going to be using in Phoenix here.
Right.
And I don't know if that was the set he sent to us, but that certainly is a potential here. And then as he makes changes to those, we can actually receive from him the changes.
Right. Although, there's probably a split coming because, I mean, the system he has is more of a research system, and we're going to be veering off to provide more of a commercial looking, or let's say a more streamlined system. So, but anyway, it's a good goal, but I don't know if we'll ultimately remain in lockstep with LCAP.
Well, our purpose right now is we need to figure out how these forms work and what they do, because what we discovered is that from the screenshots that we got initially, we could see certain things. We could see some of the HTML layout and what's the checkbox and which is a radio button and all that stuff. And from the data dictionary, we could see the field names and all that sort of thing. But what we didn't see, in all the time that we had both the PDF and the data dictionary, is that there's 20,000 lines of JavaScript code in addition. Yeah, that's pretty significant. It defines the behavior of the forms.
Absolutely.
So this is the first time, since we began looking at these, this is the first time we're able to finally figure out what is the behavior of the forms. Well, how do they work? What edits do they? What are the required fields? That's in the JavaScript. What are what edits are done on the fields? And this is JavaScript that as far as I can understand, has been evolved over 15 years.
And yeah, that's right.
So it's important for us to be able to. It's important for us to get these to run. I think just as is.
Absolutely.
So that we know what they're doing. And then, if we understand it, we have it working, maybe we can refactor the JavaScript or something. Maybe we can put it in a framework. All those questions are open. But once that's happened, then we could, with confidence, look at changing the look and feel of the forms.
Right. I've been working with them to change the look and feel of the forms for the last several years. So I'm in a different place than you are. So. Let's keep going.
Okay. But I mean, we're in sync with what we're trying to do here, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I just wanted to give context.
Okay. Cool. Well, you're giving a reason why this form here looks different than this form here.
I think so. Yeah.
Right? Basically, this one hasn't been updated, by LCAP. This one has.
Yep.
It looks a lot better.
Yeah, we put a lot of time into this. They have some people you haven't met yet over at Mount Sinai have been working on this.
Cool.
If Artit gets on the line, we can ask him who those people were.
Okay, cool. So yeah. So anyway, right now my goal here in the beginning of this call was to show you some of the forms that we've now registered. I registered most of the ones that Artit sent. There's a few that I didn't register, but all the main ones we did. So we have 11 forms registered, and 2 of them are if you will, duplicates, or it's the SP form. SP form is the one we did initially, so we've got that in here. So there's 9 forms from LCAP that we have registered. So and I'm getting this error, this type error, this undefined error here for several of the forms. And if we can, and I would love to solve that problem today, if we can, is to try to find out why are we getting this error. So,
and George, do you remember?
Alex, yes.
Just a quick question. I know Artit sent you the actual view source of the background form. Did he send you the same thing for the others? Because that may actually fix some of the errors you're seeing here. If you have the actual source.
He only sent me a new form for one form, the intake form. And I don't get that error in the intake form. Let's try. Let's actually try that.
Did Artit send you the JavaScript code for the other forms as well? I thought he sent all of those.
Well, no. What that was Dom, right? What Dom was referring is the way he saved the forms before he sent it to him was initially what he did is he went up to File and did Save Page As here, and it introduced errors into the JavaScript, at least on this SI form. And the better way to do it is to do View Page Source like this, and then to save this. Am I right, Tom?
Yep, that's what I'm asking. I think
okay, and he did that. He did that for the SI form. He didn't do that for any other forms that I know of. So if the problems we come up with are because there's a missing line from the JavaScript, then we should definitely ask him to do this, to save these differently and send them to us again.
I thought I had, and I can follow up with him if you'd like.
Yeah, he only sent this one.
Okay.
And by the way, the problems we were having with this form, we're no longer having. So this one, you know, you can put patient name. Let's get the web developer stuff here. It has this thing about the character encoding, and I don't know what that means, but it's not. It doesn't seem to impact the
Yeah, that's an easy fix.
So yeah, so this form allows me to put in to tab between fields, and so if you remember last week, we had the problem that we couldn't tab between fields on this one because we're getting a JavaScript error in the field validation processing, and so that's been fixed. So it apparently, so this form is in much better shape to go forward. But the other forms are having the problem. So, like for example, this one. So, Alexis, do you have any insight on what this error means?
I do, and you know, it's a shame I was on an airplane yesterday. I could have gotten this done yesterday, but so I have now gone through all of the forms registered in Vista itself, and with all of those forms, now we may run into other errors, but they all have the same problem, and it is that the primary form is missing a name. So for example, on this page that you've got up right here, the problem is that the variable f name is set to fu form, but when we get down to the actual form, so if you do a search in this page for left angle bracket form, that one's got a name. If you hit enter and scroll to the right, let's see. Yeah, okay, this one has a name. So it's going to be the next one that, okay, sorry, I guess it'll be the fourth one. Well, I told you to do something wrong, but I could show you on my screen. In any event, the primary form.
Why don't we start sharing your screen? Why don't you show
Sure, gladly.
what you're talking about?
Yeah. Let's see. Share my screen. Okay, that's pretty self-explanatory. So, I have been cataloging these here, and you can all sort of ignore what's written here, except that you can sort of see I started actually in FileMan and just got a list, which George showed us a minute ago, of all of these forms. And with one exception that I will come to here, in every case, it's just that this form is missing its name. So, for example, if I look at the source for this page, so this, right after the CGI form, is the primary form, sorry, HTML form for what we've been calling a form, but I'm going to call it the web page. So the primary HTML form for the web page is missing its name right over here in gray, so that should say name equals SI or S intake. So it's the same primary error on all of them, and I think that we should, whether it's from George or Dom, you know, push/beg Artit to send us the all of these forms again, captured via page source, just like he did last week for the background form. And I think that's going to solve almost all of these.
I just sent him an email asking him to do that.
Great. So George, really, I think that's almost all of them. Now, the one exception that I ran, go ahead, Dominic.
No, that's great. Cool.
Oh, it was George, sorry.
Yeah.
Now, the one exception is one that I think actually hasn't been registered in Vista yet, and it's another background form. I don't know what the difference is, but it's this one that is listed. Let's see if I can. I'm sorry. Whoop. Which one is that? Is that this guy? Yes. This guy, we can see here in the list of assets and pages, this one, as far as I can tell, has not yet been registered in Vista, so it doesn't have a short name. And it has a very different sort of an error, given, since I don't really know what to make of this HTML form yet. This may not be the real.
This is a form that Ken built, and that's Ken Sammy Sammy.js things. You're looking. That's and it is registered in Vista. It's called SB form.
Oh, interesting. So if I go here, so I have looked at this one. So if I do that, I'm looking at the. Is that correct?
Yeah, go to SB form. Right.
Okay. In that case, we can ignore that. So there is no. So for some reason, when we use this C view, this produces a JavaScript error, but apparently that's irrelevant.
Yeah, we're not. It's not really relevant. We may want to get it to work sometime, but it's not relevant to this discussion because it's not one of the original LCAP forms.
So the I guess I'll change that password after this call.
I don't think anyone had time to write it down.
So George, that's it. I mean, these forms all have the same error, and
the error is the name. Its name equals in the primary form.
Yeah, and I think yes, right. Yeah, so that form is missing its name, or those forms are missing their names, and we could fix that. But I think, as we discovered last week with Artit on the call, Artit on the call, there were actually a couple of other short chunks of JavaScript that needed to be deleted as well. So while I could easily go in and fix these, I think, as I've already said,
it'd be better to get the originals. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, great. Cool.
So yeah, I think that's all I've got to say.
So that's great. So let's see here. Yeah, so Dom, we can get your question answered if you want, but we can't show it obviously. But we can get your question answered. The way you see the data is to call up the form with the right with the form ID, which includes the date.
Which question are you referring to that I asked?
Once you load the JSON data into your local instance, then you access it with the browser and give the form ID to include the date. The form ID includes the date.
Yeah, I had tried that,
and it brings up the data in the form.
This one did not. Actually, it's not even in FileMan. So just to give everybody else some context, we're talking about importing some data into Vista or FileMan directly through JSON files. LCAP gave us some data to test with that we can't unfortunately share, but we can use it for internal testing. George was helping me import those into FileMan directly, so I could see what they look like on the web forms. But like I said, the command you gave me, after a little bit of finagling and with the directory name, it looks like it worked, but yeah, I pulled up the web form. There's no data in there, so I checked FileMan by pulling up the.
How did you check FileMan?
Directly. What's that?
How did you check FileMan?
I did the do QI, went in there and tried to pull up the existing record, and basically it asked me, do I want to create a new one, which to me means there isn't one.
All right, it didn't. Those are not the FileMan files where the data was imported.
Oh, okay.
It was imported into the graph.
I see.
You're not going to see it in the FileMan files until we get all the mapping done and all the filer stuff done. So the only way you can see it is it's in the graph. It was imported into the graphs, and you can see it on the form. And you could say there it's in a FileMan file, the graph file. So.
Okay. Well, in my case, they weren't showing up on the form either, so I don't know if I was doing something wrong or what happened.
All right, you make sure you put the form in, with the right with that complete thing with the dashes and everything, the dates.
Yeah, we can tackle that.
Okay, we can do that later. Okay.
Yeah,
In this vein, may I interject here for just a moment?
Yep.
So has anyone, I understand a couple of people tried to use their Docker images to see the changes that George made yesterday to Avicenna, but those hadn't yet been backed up. So they have now. Has anyone tried to update their Docker image to pull the freshest database and routines and HTML files from Avicenna?
I have.
Okay.
That's where I'm testing, actually. I'm not using your server. I'm using our Praxio server.
Okay.
So I did the update, and that's where I'm having those issues. But at least I have the methods there to do it. So.
Okay.
So it sounds like it worked. The update.
Yeah, the update worked.
Okay. So, George, do you have anything more you want to show us, or anything?
No, I think we didn't go through all the forms, but basically we showed 3 or 4 of them.
I imagine that's enough for now.
Yeah, and I think and we've got a good diagnostic by Alexis, and we're going to enter resolution, which is to get the new a refresh on the forms from Artit. Given that, I'm going to go the next phase of the Vista processing that's going to happen on all the forms is to change the submit button and the submit form and the buttons at the top to actually do something valid instead of doing instead of trying to go through the CGI process. So basically, I haven't added that code in because I wanted to do minimal processing on the form so that we could make sure that the JavaScript's working. But I'm working on that so that we'll actually once that JavaScript error goes away, then you'll actually be able to fill out the forms and press submit, and it'll be saved into Vista. So the next time you come in to that form for the patient, you will be able to see what you entered. And then, of course, when we and then we need the case review is the next big thing to do, because that's really the right way to create a new form instead of putting in the information in the URL. You should be doing it off the case review page, and that'll allow us to create forms with dates and and have it look so have you for all the forms where you're allowed to have multiples, we'll be able to have multiples of it, and you'll be able to see all the forms that have been created for a given patient on that. So that navigation will be important, and so that's what's next.
Awesome. I'm working on, we're going to be doing a 6-month report for Bristol Myers Squibb. Well, we're working on it now. I will, it's mainly a bookkeeping thing, so that's what I'm working on. Anybody else want to talk about what they're?
Linda, that's going to go to Drew first, right?
Right.
Okay, great.
Yeah, well, actually, I was expecting it would go to you first.
No, it's simultaneously is fine.
Okay, cool.
Okay, I guess the only other topic, I guess, is that we could talk about criteria for test patients, possibly.
Yeah. So, do you want to tell Ricardo kind of what our stopping point is there?
Yeah. Were you on last week, Ricardo? I don't remember.
I unfortunately was not able to.
Well, then why don't I just recap just one little bit of things I covered last week, and to bring it in order to introduce the question, you know. So the strategy that I'm proposing for beginning to build some test patients for us to use is to go top down and to actually identify some synthetic patients that we could
Test our functions on.
yeah, we could test with. So let's see. Let's look at. So this is synthetic mass, and this is my server of synthetic mass. Basically, I took 3 million records. Yeah, that represents 1.5 million CCDAs and 1.5 million FHIR JSON records of patients, and basically every patient's got a CCDA and a FHIR representation, and these are synthetically generated to represent the state of Massachusetts, and let's see if we can.
Not what you were.
I'm going to get to the synthetic mass. Synthetic.
Well, I think I might be able to just kind of. Basically, what we're looking for is we want a population that would be similar to the population that we would expect would be using the LCAP to capture data for. But we don't know what the parameters are, you know, what I believe there's a minimum age for LCAP, and
Well, let's talk about lung cancer screening. LCAP is one thing, which is a forward-looking study, international study. But in addition, our target is going to be what will the VA require. So it'll probably be 55 years old and older, even though we all pretty much believe it should be younger than that. So it's not a bad place to start. 50.
Okay, so 55 and older.
Or let's say you chose 50.
50 years old and older. Okay, so what percentage male, what percentage female?
50-50, but in the veteran population, it'll obviously be more male.
Okay, so let's say, and I think actually there's a website, .gov, a website that actually tells you for the real actual veterans what the percentages are of those things.
Right.
Okay, so 50 and older, some larger percentage male than female. What else could we look for?
Well, what depends what you can choose from. If you have, I see blood pressure. I doubt you have FEV1 over FEC, but
no, they don't do that. I know for sure. And they don't have any. They have no smoking indicators at all in any of the patients.
Yeah. So then, I mean, you're not going to get probably the main thing that is really looked for beyond age is pack years, right? So.
Right. Well, we're figuring that what we would do is load. See, I have code that'll load these patients, at least load the demographics of these patients into Vista. So if we could pick a set of patients, I can use the Fire JSON here and load these patients into our Vista system, and then they won't really have anything else in them.
Yeah.
So then we could add to them. Doctor them up and add to them, smoking indicators, etc. Whatever we might find in VA in their Vista system for the characteristics of the patients.
Right. Or what we're building out. We're going to be building in.
Exactly.
Things. So that's great.
So these would be test records, so that the records in so instead of XXX002, you would actually have a patient's name that is in that Vista system and has a DFN and has an MRN and has all that stuff, and so we'd have that. At least we would start to tie Vista patient records with our LCAP data from our forms.
Right.
And then we could over time, figure out, when a form is filled out and some fields are populated, what in the Vista patient record, is there another place we need to update that?
Right. So what you're describing is really a representative database of what we expect a screening population to look like in the VA.
Right.
The data, the 10 data sets that we managed to get from ARTIT and Claudia's okay with was not a representative data set. It was meant to sort of test out the some of the more challenging things that we might have to deal with. So for example, if you had let's just take 100. If you had 100 synthetic patients who are at high risk of lung cancer, between 1 and 2 of them would wind up getting lung cancer in the general population. In the VA population, it might be 3 or 4. But in the data that we received from ARTIT, the request was made that half of them actually have cancer. So that we test out more things, and we asked them to pick out things that would provide coverage, if you will. Right.
Of
the system.
Yeah. So this initiative here we're talking about is really not instead of that; it's in addition to that. So go ahead.
Yeah, what I was trying to get to is I think what you're doing will create a representative data set with this base system that you have here, data that you have here, and then we'll create derivatives of it in the testing, which we'll be doing a lot of over on the Praxial side, and basically creating variants that again stress the system, cover more strange things that could happen, right?
Right.
Which is great. We need a lot of testing data. So.
Okay, good. So yeah, we'll proceed forward with that. So we're at
George?
So that's good. Yes.
Are there diagnoses in here or problem lists?
Yeah, there are problems lists and diagnoses. They're called conditions. So we go to this person's conditions. person has hypertension, chronic
Oh, that reminds me, by the way.
sinusitis,
By
acute
the way, there's
bronchitis.
certain conditions that will rule somebody out of lung cancer screening.
Ah,
Not conditions, but so for instance, if you get a I don't know how Claudia would feel about this. She would be able to say. But let's say you get somebody who's 100 years old.
right.
Does it make sense to screen that patient if they're and they have some terminal condition, you know, not related to cancer?
Mm-hmm.
Would you start screening at that point? Also, if I guess there's certain respiratory and other conditions you wouldn't be able to do with therapy. But Claudia,
so this patient, 67, has acute bronchitis.
That's probably okay.
Okay.
Or maybe COPD also. I don't know how we do this, but a previous history of lung cancer that is in remission, I seem to remember, is one of the things that they considered.
Well, there are some of these patients that have lung cancer. You know, so we might count them out. So there's we
and
do
those are going to be late stage. Can you find early stage lung cancers?
No, they don't. Well, they have. Okay, here's a suspected lung cancer situation, and that's a SNOMED code, and there are 48,054 records that have this code, and so we can look.
That's
at
a
one.
good place to start.
So here's a patient that that has, let's say, problems. They've got hypertension, malignant neoplasm of the colon, suspected lung cancer, non-small cell lung cancer. Oh, they have a death certificate too. They're dead.
That kind of rules them out right there.
Yeah, I think, in fact, a lot of these that are in this list are dead. Let's see how many.
Well, that's the lethality of cancer, of lung cancer.
Yeah.
But how accurate, how close to realistic do you think all these codes and all these conditions are in these synthetic data sets? I mean, did they really make sure that when a patient presents with certain conditions that they have a certain blood pressure and you know, all these other things that
I mean, no. I mean, there is the models they built. They built 35 models to represent different kinds of conditions. They populated those models with statistics that they got either from CDC or from you know, the research they did into the what do you call it? The word is into the progress of diseases that are documented. What's it called? Is it best practices or something? I forget. Anyway, they have a word for what they do, and they made sure that in the population the right percentage of people get the diagnoses, and that as this progresses, the right percentage of people die after after the expected number of years, and the right number of people survive it. I don't know that they may have coordinated lab tests, for example, for those people.
This example you've got here has a problem of non-small cell carcinoma, and then down under surgeries,
right,
they've got chemotherapy and radiation therapy, which is what you would expect to see. So
for late stage, sure.
Yeah.
Can we look at the vitals for this patient to see?
Yes, we can. We can, I think. Let's see. Vital signs.
Well, and the plan of care follows along with late-stage lung cancer as well.
I think this is more than adequate for what we need at this point. We can always get more data from the LCAP group if we need it.
Okay, yeah, but I mean, I think I would like, what I really want to have here is a set of public, public unit tests, public test patients that are guaranteed to be synthetic. No one could complain that they could represent any person, and that's why I'm starting with synthetic mass, because it's all developed by the by MITRE with money from the ONC. And they are absolutely, federally guaranteed test patients.
Right.
They're synthetic. So no one can say, oh, that might be a real person. No, it's not. It's just, I can tell you exactly who it is. It's a synthetic patient from synthetic mass. And we took their data, and then we added to that data, basically to make them into a test case for us. So the questions we have 1.5 million to pick from. And how shall we go about finding the ones we're going to use? How many do we need? You're suggesting 100. That's fine. 100, it doesn't scare me. Maybe we start with 10, and then add 100 just to get the process down. And then
that makes sense.
So yeah. So actually. Anyone who would be really interested, I will write a blog post that will put these URLs up for synthetic mass and the URL for the for my site, which I was just reviewing, this one, the Cynthia 1M Vistaplex site is my site, and invite people to look at both things. They are the same patients. They're just two ways of accessing them. I think in some of these, there may be a query capability in some of the synthetic mass stuff where you can enter in things and get patients back. I'm not sure. Right now, it's just browsing the interface I'm showing you here. But to look through these, and if you come up with patients that you think might be good to include in our list of, let's say, 10 or 20 test patients to use, contribute them. Send it, contribute it to the list, to the our OSEHRA group discussion list. So we can publicly select from the synthetic mass the patients we're going to add, and that'll be, and then we'll assemble those, and I'll assemble the list and write the program that'll download them and insert them into our Vista instance, so we can actually have them there. And then I'll write the interface, that'll allow you to associate a patient in Vista with one of the, give them a study ID and associate it with the form. So actually, when we get these forms, it'll have, instead of a last name, first name of Doe Jane, it'll have the patient that this is actually associated with. And it'll have the MRN. This will be an ICN for Vista. So this will be when I insert the patient, Vista acts an internal control number. Vista assigns an internal control number, and that'll be very much like what the VA has in their systems. They have ICNs. So we'll have at least a high level correlation between the forms in Vista for LCAP and the patients in Vista that are in the Vista record, and that'll be kind of the beginning of the correspondence between the two.
So do the Cynthia patients have some kind of ID number or something like that? Because I didn't.
The best way to do it is with the name.
Okay.
The best way to do it. Every name is absolutely unique. So so if you want to point to a record, All the records are named. This one's Adams 180 underscore Beth 648. See, so that's the patient's name.
Okay.
And that's the best way to identify them, because that's the way they, that's basically how they generate them. And those names are unique in synthetic mass and in Cynthia.
Cool. Okay. Is there anything else that anyone wants to contribute before we finish off this call? Hearing no one jumping in before I decided got impatient, I just want to remind everyone that there will be no call next week. I think you guys can figure out why. So have a great holiday and a great rest of your year, and we will see you next year. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Linda. Bye.
Linda.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.